I'm Detavio Samuels, and I am a culture builder. One of the first things I did when I got to Revolt was to create an internal agency. And we call that agency 606000000 is the hex code for Blackness, right? And so it's an agency that's very much rooted in Black culture, Black storytelling. And the reason I did that is because my career actually really started off at Global Hue, which was at the time one of the #1 multicultural agency. In fact, we won Multicultural Agency of the Decade. And when I was there, what I was seeing happening as a creative agency was so much of the work that we were doing was starting to leave the agency side and go to the media side. And so then the opportunity for me on the media side was that media people actually weren't good at things like client services, taking care of client business. And so I always knew that there was going to be an opportunity to build a best-in-class agency that could deliver best-in-class service as well as best-in-class ideas. A lot of the ways that media transacts nowadays is the best idea wins. So a client will come to you and say, we've got $3 million. Whoever has the best idea between BET, Complex, Revolt, gets the lion's share of the money. And so building an agency so that we always had the best decks, the best ideas, and the best execution has been a fundamental growth driver for our business, right? I think if you take 6 zeros out of the business, you don't see Revolt growing revenue 6, 7x in the way that we have. And so the future for 6 zeros is very much going to be to continue to drive the media business and help brands and advertisers continue to connect with the culture and the hard-to-reach audience that we have. But what I'm also excited about what 6 zeros doing is their own levels of innovation. They're trying to create their own products. It's almost like they're becoming their own incubator for ideas inside of the company. And so now, not only are they giving clients the best innovative ideas, they're bringing some of those ideas to Revolt. And the people will see those in the marketplace, and I'm excited to see how they look and how it works. I'm really concerned about this moment that we're having with DEI. Well, today I can't say that Revolt has lost money or anything because of companies rolling it back. In fact, some of the biggest companies who are notorious or known for rolling things back are also some of the biggest clients of Revolt, right? So they're still there, and we're watching them and measuring them by their deeds, not necessarily their words. But what I know about this moment is we're getting ready to lose Black media companies. We're getting ready to lose Black businesses. Even if you just think about the government getting rid of DEI, how many Black CEOs, entrepreneurs have been feeding their families off of these government contracts and opportunities. And so my heart is broken for what I believe is going to happen when we wake up in a year or in 2 years or 3 years and kind of see the impact of all of it. I think it's important that we right now find ways to reframe that conversation. I think we need to reframe, a couple ways I think we need to reframe it. One, I think we need to reframe the name. I think DEI as an idea is dead. It's never coming back. It's never going to work as an idea. So we need to find a way to take that idea, codify it with a new name, merchandise it differently, and then start driving that agenda. That's one. And then two, the other thing that I keep telling people is we need to shift the conversation from underrepresentation to overrepresentation. Let's not talk about how Black media is 1% of the media industry. Let's start talking about how white men are 30% of this country, but 99% of presidents, right? They've been every president except one. How white men are 30% of this country, but they are 75% of Fortune 500 CEOs. They are 75% of senators, Congress, doctors, surgeons. The issue is not that we have an underrepresentation problem. We have an overrepresentation problem. And I think that if we start to see it in that way, then we're only left with two truths. Only two things can be true. Either we really believe that white men are just that good. They're just smarter, better, more capable than anybody else. And I don't think that's where most people will land. And so if you don't believe that idea, then the only other idea is that the system is set up to see white men succeed and women and people of color are disadvantaged. And I think when we see it that way, hopefully we can start designing solutions that can shift and break the system. I think it's imperative today that we focus on controlling our own narrative. When I look at the Black community specifically, I think that you can draw a straight line between the narrative that they tell about us and the way that they treat us in the marketplace. I think that the way people see you transforms into the way that people treat you. And given our history of time where people have consistently seen us as third-class citizens, savages, not worth, that is why we don't get the same amount of health care. That is why we don't get the same amount of education. That is why we don't get to build wealth in the same ways. And so I think if we want to change the way that policy works, if we want to change the opportunities that are presented to us, it's important for us to control our own narrative. We do that at Revolt every single day. It's kind of our mission. It's what we wake up for. We exist to shift the narrative, control the narrative around Black people globally. And we do that by telling different stories. And we tell stories that showcase that the Black group or the Black collective is not a monolithic group. We have varying different opinions. Never do we ever have to agree. But this idea that we are all things, not one singular archetype like you often see in television. You often get the angry Black woman, or you get the thug in terms of the Black man, right? And so for us, it's about painting a picture and shining a light on so many of the other different stories that exist in our community. That's why you'll see people like Earn Your Leisure, our guys from Earn Your Leisure on Revolt. That's why you'll see people like Ross Mack, or I have a show called The Black Print, right, where we get to showcase all of these different versions of Blackness and different versions of greatness to put something else out into the world, to allow the world to hopefully see us differently, because then we believe they'll treat us differently. The message that's been on my heart right now in terms of how we as a community should be thinking about how we navigate these times has been this quote that's been on my heart since November, which is, they tried to bury us, they didn't know we were seeds. And it's this idea that, yes, it may feel like we are being stumped and pushed into the ground from policy changes, business changes, corporate changes, government changes. But there's two things that happen in the darkness. There's death, but then there's also birth. And if we can start to see this moment not as death, not as a burial, but as us being planted. And when you're planted, you take roots, you connect with one another, you move in silence, and you set yourself up so that one day you can break free and climb as high as possible. And so don't see this as a death moment. Don't see this as a burial moment. This is the time where we get in the dark, we move in silence, we collaborate, we strategize, we work together. And if we do that well, we will all see ourselves grow.